Now, this is the
Japan
thing.
and Australia are the only two other countries we've sold Tomahawk missiles to.
Now, if Israel has one, that means we secretly sold it to them. And
Yes.
if
Thank
Iran
you.
did it, that means they stole a
They
Tomahawk
stole it.
missile,
Right.
which would be very concerning, and
Clock
everyone
it,
should be worried about
Eugene.
it. So this idea that anyone involved in what's happening in Iran other than us has
Greetings and welcome back to Clock It, where we talk about what we see and hear at the intersection of culture and politics.
This week, New Mexico investigators are searching a ranch that used to belong to Jeffrey Epstein and now belongs to a Texas lawmaker. And the WNBA still does not have an agreement with the players, which means the season might start late.
Yes, the girls are fighting. They're fighting with the owners for a bigger share of the league's revenue.
It's a good fight.
Did you actually know that currently in the NBA, the players get 51% of the pie, and in the WNBA, the players get 9.3%? Make that make sense.
I assumed it because of how raggedy it has been between the NBA and the WNBA.
I mean, it's given inequality.
It's not good.
And people want to watch. Look, we can get into
We
it,
don't
but
have
people are
some point.
watching the WNBA,
Exactly.
and women's sports is making money.
Yes, and they need to make money back. Meanwhile, NATO is intercepting missiles in Turkey, and the United Nations says that in Lebanon, almost 700,000 people, y'all, 700,000 people have been displaced by Israeli attacks on Hezbollah.
It's so sad, and we will be talking about that war in the Middle East, child. From the Pentagon social media posts
Very
to how
weird.
much airfare is about to go up because of the disruption of the oil business. But that is not all. Don Lemon is joining the group chat.
No, I don't know anything about the Don Lemon thing, but he's a sleazebag. Everyone's known that. He's a washout. Probably, from his standpoint, the best thing that could happen to him.
Do you
is
think
getting-
Don Lemon lives rent-free? And
It
Donald
seems
Trump
like
said,
it. Anytime Donald Trump says, I don't know anything about it, he clearly seems to know a lot about it. So, yes, we have our friend Don Lemon this week talking about the best thing that ever happened to him, that is a quote, as well as how he's judging the media's coverage of the war with Iran. Not a great grade, by the way.
But we are going to start in a different country. We're starting in Cuba, where nobody is attacking anybody yet, child. Okay, so this is what is going on. This was actually in Eugene and I's
Yes.
international group chat.
Mhm.
But so this is Donald Trump last week at the White House celebrating
him to get
Inter
too
Miami.
popular,
Eugene, that's a
when they get
professional
too
soccer team.
popular.
Thank you very
okay?
much. I had no idea.
And they won the championship.
All of a sudden,
But
when
as
you
soon
see,
as
where's
the
Marco?
president
He's
starts to
not
shout out
around
Marco
anymore.
Rubio, he gets a little distracted.
He's doing some job, and your next one is going to be, we want to do that special Cuba. He's waiting, but he says, let's get this one finished first. We could do them all at the same time, but bad things happen. If you watch countries over the years, you do them all too fast, bad things happen. We're not going to let anything bad happen to this country.
I want to be very clear by let's get this one finished first. The president means Iran.
A full war. And by we want to do that special Cuba, he means invading, attacking Cuba in some way is special to Marco Rubio. That's the one that Rubio wants. And I think something for people who are paying like a little bit of attention, but not all the attention about this, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and all the other jobs, he's like the archivist, the national archivist, he's the
Mhm.
national security advisor. He is at the center of so much of this. And he is someone who has a much stronger um, foreign policy posture than Donald Trump wants and is probably used to.
He has
And
an
so-
ideology that he
Yes.
subscribes
And Donald
to.
Trump does not have an ideology. So if you are someone
correct.
in this administration that has an ideology and you want Donald Trump to do something, it's easier to convince him to do so because he himself, he doesn't really care about policy. He cares about getting a flashy headline, of getting people, like really to get people excited. And I will say, I was talking to a lot of Cuban Americans, and one thing that they have said over and over again is that if Donald Trump does do something in Cuba, there's some kind of regime change in Cuba, the benefit he will receive politically from Latinos in this country, they're not a monolith, to be very clear. But many are looking for Cuba, the leader of Cuba, to go away. There will be some benefit to him if that's the
Marco
case.
Rubio is also a descendant of those that fled a communist
Mhm.
dictator, Cuba, right? Like
Mhm.
his formative years, what he believes is shaped by that. There's a strong contingent in Miami that also subscribes to this, and so it is like, I mean, y'all remember when the president when it snatched up the president of
Venezuela.
Venezuela, Maduro,
Mhm.
and there were people who were celebrating in the streets of
Miami,
Florida,
Florida, all over the
Texas,
country. Yeah.
where there were large Venezuelan populations.
The reason I keep looking at my phone
Yeah,
is
I'm
because
like, this
someone
motherfucker not paying attention to me.
someone sent me this is about Marco Rubio, about how he when he was a kid in his in his memoirs, An American Son from 2012, I'm gonna just read this quote. I boasted I would someday lead an army of exiles to overthrow Fidel Castro and become president of a free Cuba. That is in his memoir.
He is the grandson of Cuban exiles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to note that many of Trump's closest advisors do come from South Florida. So it shapes them. Like, you know,
Yeah.
if you hire a bunch of black people from Nebraska, we're going to fancy the
Right.
steak over the shrimp or
Right,
the
right,
salmon,
right,
right?
right.
We're going to have a little a penchant
Right.
for the things that we know. What I think people just need to make sure that they are like tuned in on what's going on in Cuba. Just like in the Venezuela operation, the government had been practicing for months.
Yeah.
For months. The service members, they were practicing in Kentucky in a warehouse
Mhm.
on how they bust down the doors at
Right.
Maduro's house. It is not far-fetched to believe that the government is currently practicing to go in and snatch up the current leader in Cuba, but they are looking for charges to underscore what they're
They already
doing.
have a working group.
They
in
have
the
a work
DOJ.
at the Department of Justice. Shout
Mhm.
out to Carol Lennick, our colleagues in Ken Delaney, and getting them scoops in that reporting,
Okay,
child.
because and so this is the thing that's so interesting is there are certain countries where they choose to not make it like a legal question, right?
Mhm.
So Iran, for example, there wasn't a DOJ charge for the Ayatollah, right? They're just like,
Right,
we're blowing
because,
him
you
up.
know, Iran is the greatest threat to United States national security.
According to this administration,
Any Democrat or
yes.
Republican. When I
Yes.
worked for Vice President Harris, when I worked for the Biden campaign
Yeah.
in 2020, the one that won, just clocking now, okay? Some people work for somebody. And when I elected a
I
president,
am not.
when I was helping elect a president,
Uh-huh.
after then candidate Biden selected his running mate,
Mhm.
which was then Senator Vice President Harris, the running mates go through all these briefings
Yeah.
and whatnot to make sure that, you know, we on the same page. I
Right.
know what you think, but this is what Joe Biden thinks.
Right, and only say that.
And only say that. And in one of the briefings, like this is not classified information I'm giving you, but in the national security briefing,
Mhm.
it was Iran is the greatest threat to America's national security. Not China,
Mhm.
not Russia. Like it literally, like our briefer went through this.
Right.
And I think that people have to understand that this is not just a Trump administration thing. There are Democratic administrations. If Kamala Harris was president, I think she would have said Iran is the greatest threat to
But
America.
would she have bombed?
She would not have
Iran,
bombed. I think
right?
I can say
That's
with
different.
confidence she wouldn't have bombed them. Because this is what Netanyahu wanted.
Mhm.
Now, the internet, because I'm not responding to the comments, but I'm going to speak to the comments on the podcast.
Okay.
Y'all know by now. The internet from our episode last week were like, I cannot believe Simone and Eugene, but they really said I did it,
Yeah.
are trafficking
Good.
in these anti-Semitic tropes about Israel. And I was just like, hold on, folks.
I didn't see this.
This ain't that.
Yeah.
And we need to be specific. To be clear, Prime Minister Netanyahu has for longer than I have been alive.
40 years.
Come on, and I'm
He
36.
said it himself.
He
said it himself. For
He
40
said it.
years, he's wanted this.
He's wanted what?
To attack Iran in some
Come
way, shape,
on now.
or
And he
form.
has asked President, Democrats, and Republicans to do it. And Donald Trump is the only American president that took Prime Minister Netanyahu's bait, that took the argument and acted on what he wanted. So to be very clear, it's not anti-Semitic to
Mhm.
underscore the facts. And the facts are Donald Trump did this because Prime Minister Netanyahu was very adept in getting him to do what he wanted.
And one of the ways in which he did this, which is so interesting, is that he said to Donald Trump, this is all in the report, and it's all public. God, don't forget, this is someone who wanted to kill you. There was a plot, remember?
Iran did
And so
have a
there
hit
is a
on Trump's
personal
life.
aspect of this for Donald Trump that is very interesting. But
Mhm.
as of this recording, the Pentagon has said that 140 U.S. troops have been injured in the war with Iran, 8 severely. And we know that 7 service members have died because of it.
Mm.
But the social media accounts of both the Pentagon and the White House are acting like this is a game.
Hmm.
This is the video. I want to play this video for you that puts the score from the Call of Duty video game over footage of actual strikes on Iran.
This is ridiculous.
What will you do without freedom?
Mavericks inbound.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of.
Finishing this fight.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
I am the danger.
Time to find out.
The voice actor who says, quote, finishing the fight, this was posted on X, I demand that the producers of this disgusting and juvenile war porn remove my voice immediately. It uses a clip of Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, and the director, Ben Stiller, said, also on X, we never gave you permission and have no interest in being a part of your propaganda machine. War is not a movie. Simone, they are right. When I was in high school, I went to Shoemaker High School in Killeen, Texas, right outside of Fort Hood.
Hence the tattoo.
Correct. 85% of our parents were in Iraq or Afghanistan when I was in high school. We had blue and silver stars, because we were all blue and silver stars around the school with all of our parents' names, dads, moms, aunts, uncles, people who are our guardians. We had gold stars for the kids who lost their parents. And it is shocking to me, it is disgusting that when you know what it looks like to watch your friend find out that their parent is killed, has given the ultimate sacrifice for this country, to have the people that then send them to do it acting like it's fun and it's a video game, and then it is something they should meme and make fun of and play with, it's bullshit.
The memification of war is in fact sickening.
Yeah.
It's just so sad in thinking about that. I'm thinking about the 7
Yeah.
U.S. service members who have died thus far.
Mhm.
I shudder to think about the additional casualties that are coming. And so the fact that they are, what they're trying to do is desensitize us to what is really going on.
Yeah.
And shout out to the people that are seeing their art
Yeah.
being used here and being
Right.
like, hell no,
Right.
get my down,
Right.
okay?
Immediately.
Immediately.
I-
I saw Ben Stiller. I said, clock it,
He
Ben
said
Stiller.
expeditiously.
Let me go watch a movie.
I think the thing that is, and this is something important to say, because I feel like when folks hear people from MS talk about the military, they're like, you guys don't support the military. No.
my daddy was in the military.
Okay, we understand the sacrifices.
Yes.
I've been a military brat my whole life. The folks that go overseas, they understand that they may not come back.
Mm.
When my dad went to Korea, he went to Kosovo. There were all these
Your
different
daddy
kind
was
of,
a war
he
hero,
was very
child.
much busy. When my father
My daddy
missed
was a
me being
scientist in
born,
the
okay?
Army,
My
yes.
father missed me being born because he was in the first Gulf
Wow.
War. Okay, so we in this, okay, to be very clear. And so when people are sent over there, they understand they may not come back. Their
Mhm.
families understand they may not come back. When you have to wait, now it's much easier, but we had to hope for a phone call or wait
Mm.
for an email, you know what I mean, or a letter. I think the thing that is so frustrating is that this administration does not seem to understand that it's not that folks don't want to sacrifice, that they don't understand the sacrifice, that they didn't sign up for it. It's that if I'm going to sacrifice, I want to sacrifice for people who understand what that
Mhm.
sacrifice is like. They don't have to be someone in the army. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that everyone that sends folks over have to be in the military, has to have some kind of military background, but they have to respect the fact that someone may not come back.
You know who made this point this week? Cheryl Underwood.
Yeah.
Okay, she is guest hosting on The View this week while Alyssa is
Yeah.
out on maternity leave. And Cheryl Underwood is a lifelong Republican, like
Mhm.
Michael Steele, a
And people
black
are always
Republican.
surprised by
Yes,
that.
a black Republican. And Cheryl Underwood is a veteran.
Yeah.
And she made this very
They showed her
point at the
picture?
table. They showed her because they were like, we got receipts.
Right.
I put on a uniform to serve this country, and I always wanted to know, why am I doing this? It's me in the Air Force Reserve. Why are we doing it? And I do believe when they say you should not follow an unlawful order. Why is this not impeachable?
Right.
And where are the politicians to say this dude don't have it all the way together? He cannot be the commander-in-chief.
I do think this is very important because the misinformation, the disinformation that is out there about what is happening
Yeah.
in this war is insane. The memification is an attempt, in my opinion, to dumb it down
Yeah.
for folks, to desensitize it. And look, the lies and the kind of conspiracy theories online, they're bubbling up. We talked about the 7
Yeah.
service members.
Yeah.
You know, one of the theories that I have heard from real people
It's concerning.
is that the coffins of the service members that we saw where the president attended the dignified transfer where he had that hat on, very disrespectful, child. Same hat he wore to go golfing.
Yeah.
Joe Biden checked his fucking watch
Yes.
during a dignified transfer. Everybody was like, oh, he hates the military.
Mhm.
But Donald Trump can have the hat on, make it make sense to me. But there's a conspiracy theory that, like, I'm not going to say who, because some people know who they are. But
I want to know.
Somebody was
I
like,
don't even know. She won't even tell me.
somebody was like, did you know that the Americans that came back during the dignified transfer, they really didn't come back. They've been captured by Iran. And I was like, where did you hear this? And they were like, oh, I read it on the internet and I saw it on an article. The Hindu Times don't count. I'm sorry. So
Jesus
misinformation, disinformation is very real.
It's very weird and it's very scary.
And it's not true. Those Americans are dead. And we don't know why.
Yeah.
So maybe the government could let us know what the hell is going on.
We're going to take a break for that
Yeah,
before our
I
blood
need a
pressure
beat.
get too high.
I need a beat.
When we come back, Don Lemon, he'll be here with us. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, friends. Joining the group chat now is the incomparable Don Lemon. Among his many achievements over a very long career at CNN was this opener in 2018.
This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. The President of the United States is racist. A lot of us already knew that. Today, President Trump, talking with lawmakers in the Oval Office about immigrants from Haiti, from El Salvador, and Africa, said, and I quote, "Why are we having all these people from whole countries come here?" But you know who he did say he would welcome here? He said the U.S. should bring in more people from countries like Norway.
Baby!
Well,
in 2018, can you believe that was controversial? Now Don Lemon is an independent journalist, and he is still reporting very accurately about this administration, Donald Trump, and the people standing up to this in this moment that we are all living in. Don, thank you for coming to the group chat today. We love you.
I love you too. Two things now.
You can speak
I
back
can get
now.
into
Yes. Yes.
I
yes.
can get into a lot of trouble because you know, Simone, when we get together, especially if it's over a little cocktail,
too much.
it's too much. The other thing is that I
No,
cannot
it's too
believe that it was controversial back in 2018, but I suffered the
Mhm.
consequences of that. I mean, I'm not, patting myself on the back, but I think that I've always kind of been ahead of my time. With these things. I mean, you guys are beeping it. That wasn't beep. That went straight out on cable news where I said,
Yeah, it did.
shithole
It
country.
did.
Yeah.
We were saying shithole countries for about a week.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, very much so. I mean, but Don was ahead of his time. I'm thinking about
a
how
lot of
Vivek
things.
Ramaswamy,
Mhm.
and remember Vivek Ramaswamy
Mhm.
and that interview that Don did with him.
Or the Elon Musk
Don was
interview,
correct. Oh,
where he
yes, child.
pulled
Elon
the
Musk.
wool off of some people's eyes. But we're going to talk about all that. We're going to also talk about what's going on, the prosecution you're dealing with, and First Amendment issues, first and foremost there. But we want to get in Iran first. We want to talk with you about how, at this point, it feels like the war is coming home. How Americans are starting to see gas skyrocket while Trump has kicked off this thing in the Middle East. And what I hear over and over, Don, from this administration is like, be patient with us. This is a short-term pain, and for a long-term gain. And I think the thing that's really important, and we all three know this, and it seems like this administration does not, is that voters, human beings that live in this country, do not want to give you short-term pain. They're already dealing with so much pain. So
Right.
this is an administration that is asking regular people to eat the cost of a war that primarily seems to be benefiting, in Trump's eyes, his own legacy. What do you make of that math?
Look, you must have been listening to the show that I just finished, my own live stream, because I basically said the same thing that you're saying, Eugene. I mean, most people live, most people, I'm going to say many people, if not most, live paycheck to paycheck, or pretty close to that in this country. And it's an insult to the American people to ask them to sacrifice that, and even more of an insult to the people who voted for him. Because the rich people, they can deal with it. The Howard Lutnicks of the world, the Scott Bessents, and all the rich people who are supporting him, okay, that's fine. They can deal with the short-term pain. But the average person out there who cares about gas prices, who cares about rent prices, who may not be making,
Who pumps their own gas.
Exactly.
I pump my own gas.
Those people
Yeah.
don't have time, and they don't have the means to hold out for short-term pain. So it's insulting. And on top of that, Donald Trump and his family are profiting off of this war. His sons are profiting off of it.
Yeah.
Go look up who they're in business with. Contractors that are building and supplies for the war efforts, not just this war, but just in general, equipment that you need to go to war.
They just
It is
started a new
outrageous.
business, Don
Yes.
Jr. A new
Power Us.
business.
It's
Yes.
called Power Us. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you just think about this economy, everything is already more expensive. I say it every week, beef is up 15%. Okay, people eating hamburger helper. And then on top of that, you've got these rising gas prices, not just the gas that we put in our cars, but plane tickets are now gonna go up. The things we buy are gonna also get more expensive because most things in America are shipped via rail or via truck, and that all requires gas. I just don't think Americans are really ready for how this is gonna just literally hit us in our pockets in a way in which a lot of people may not be able to recover from.
I just went on to book an airplane trip, and I was like, I mean, I gasped.
Yeah.
At
It's
the prices.
expensive.
Yes,
Yeah.
because the jet fuel is so expensive right now. The cost of fuel is so expensive. And if you look at gasoline, every day it's going up incrementally. And people, there was a man I saw, it may have been on your show, who said that if gas prices got to $3.50 or $4 or even $4.50, that he would no longer be able to afford to run his business. And that's what's happening in America right now. And the human toll. These are families so far, as we're taping this, 7 have died. I don't know what it's going to be when this actually airs, but 7 service members have died.
It's
And
insane.
it's Don, what we're seeing in polling is that while a lot of Americans are concerned about what Trump is doing in Iran, they're concerned that he didn't try to sell it to them or try to get their buy-in. They're concerned that he didn't even go to Congress about it. They're concerned that it's going to cost reportedly $1 billion a day. But when you look at in some new polling that's come out over the last couple of days, Republicans, especially MAGA aligned Republicans, are like 80 to 90% still okay with it. And so I guess until we see Republicans in polling say we have issues with this, I don't see why Donald Trump will think there is any political blowback for him when it comes to this in this country.
Well, as you know, no one knows better than you guys because you've been covering this for a long time. You're actually political correspondents and anchors. I'm just a general assignment reporter anchor back in the day.
Okay.
But
All right.
I mean,
Now
you
he's
guys,
just a generalist.
correct. But you guys know that he's always going to have a certain degree of people, right? It's always going to be that 28 to 30% of people who are going to support him no matter what. Because let's be honest, it's a cult. These people are brainwashed. You cannot talk to them. You cannot convince them. Even the people now, I see some people ripping the Trump stickers off of their cars saying, gas prices are too high and on and on and on. He's, he's helping out his rich buddies instead of helping us out. Okay, it's happening, but not enough. But there aren't enough of those people to win in 2026 if they don't try to steal this election. So I believe that the solid Trump MAGA base is smaller than people think. It's not half of the country as people would like us to believe, as some of the political pundits would like us to believe. It's about it's a quarter or less of the voting public, of the electorate, the people who are registered to vote. So most people are not going along with this. So there's an opportunity in 2026. But you're right.
Some people, they'll never get peeled off.
That's why they went to the Capitol in January in 2021, because it's a cult.
I think part of the cultiness of it all and the blind following to the leadership is also how people are getting the news about this war, right? If you are someone that only watches, Fox News, or you only look at conservative media, you have I think a warped view of what is really going on.
Let's be straight about this. Let's just be honest about this. There's a certain number of people in the public who they didn't vote for him for the prices. They don't care about, they care about the gas prices,
correct.
but that's not why they really voted for him. They care about the price of beef, but that's not why they really voted for him. They voted for him for the misogyny. They voted for him for the racism. They voted for him for the election denial. They voted for him for
the mass deportation.
The mass deportations, for the anti-vax of it all, because they believe in those things. And they voted for him for the white supremacy. And so there is nothing, if you have that sort of mindset, which is really an irrational mindset anyways, there is nothing that's going to convince you that what you did and what you're voting for and what you're supporting is wrong, because that's why you voted for him. They didn't vote for him for the prices.
When I was at Politico, I went to Iowa during the 2018 primaries and midterms, and I was talking to the soybean farmer, and the soybean farmer had lost like $1 million, and when this is like a one-person farm, that's a lot of money.
This was the first term, right?
Yes, this was the first time, and this was when he had his tariff war with China. And I said to him, you lost all this money. You were saying you may have to close this farm down, one that your family has had for generations. Do you blame Donald Trump? He said, I trust him to do the right thing. And I think like that right there at the beginning of the Trump phenomenon told me everything I need to know about trying to convince these people. Because even when money is leaving your wallet, right, it is difficult for some of them to say I'm wrong. And there's like a human psychology to it, right? Like, none of us want to say we're wrong. We're all married, and so when we're in a fight, we fight to the death. Because I'm not saying I'm wrong.
Well, as my friend Cleo Wade would say, every ground is not a battleground.
That's not true. I disagree with that.
Well, you need therapy.
I haven't.
Wait, am I getting into the middle of something here? Mommy and Daddy are fighting.
But
Look,
our normal fight.
Eugene, I think that proves my point then, that the problem is outside of yourself, that it is that person. It's that black person that took your job. It's not me with the tariffs that's destroying your farm. It's because they're giving money to the black and the poor and immigrants, and women are taking our jobs. That is the thing that he and this administration capitalize on, is that the othering of people, of minorities, of immigrants, of women. And that's the fuel that keeps them coming back and voting against their own interests.
It's actually so crazy. I'd be interested what the soybean farmer has to say now, because while they might have believed him in that first term, they are now back in a worse position.
Well,
China has bought not one soybean.
Right. You know, Scott Bessent is a soybean farmer. He said, I'm a soybean farmer too.
All right. I'm not even buying that Scott Bessent has known a soybean. Can I just, something that literally spoke to me this week. We talk a lot about the journalists at the White House, Eugene, your former people. Our senior Washington correspondent here. And I was really struck by this exchange between Sean McCreesh. I don't know if he's a new reporter to the White House beat, because when I was at the White House, Sean McCreesh was not there.
Right.
He's at the New York Times, and he literally pinned Donald Trump down about the New York Times' own analysis showing that it was actually an American missile that destroyed the girls' middle school in Tehran on the first day of the war. Listen to this exchange.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
It's crazy, because I just want to be clear.
It's not true.
Just anybody and their mama cannot just get a Tomahawk. Iran cannot just get a Tomahawk missile. The United States, we sell the Tomahawk missiles to people. But that goes to the point that y'all were just making about how the president literally sometimes just says anything. It's a lie, and he thinks he can get away with it because he has for so long.
The New York Times is reporting this ongoing military investigation that has determined already that the United States is responsible for this deadly Tomahawk missile strike on this
Correct.
the Iranian
because it is
school.
a Tomahawk missile. I want to be very clear. It was a Tomahawk missile.
Have one.
Only
right.
we have the missiles.
Right. Israel doesn't have one. Iran doesn't have one.
We have sold it to
and
some
so
of
do
our
we.
allies. Now, this is
Japan and Australia are the only two other countries we've sold Tomahawk missiles
now,
to.
if Israel has one, that means we secretly sold it to them.
Yes.
And if Iran did it, that means they stole a Tomahawk missile, which would be very concerning.
Clock
and everyone should be worried about it. So this idea that anyone involved in what's happening in Iran other than us has it does not make any sense when you look at the ways in which these missiles are done. But go ahead, Donna.
No, you're right about that. Even Pete Hegseth, who is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, had the wherewithal not to co-sign what the president said. He goes, it's under investigation. I'm like, oh, okay, because he realizes Donald Trump has complete immunity. He does not. The other thing is that I want to talk about is the White House correspondence. Now, Sean
Well.
McCreesh did a great job asking that question. Now, sometimes you need to step back and get some perspective. I like Sean McCreesh. I thought it was a good question. I thought finally someone is actually asking the question in the right way. But as I was listening to my friends across the pond do this on another network, they were actually surprised that he was getting so much plaudits for doing something that should be done every single day by the White House correspondents or by any reporter in any market anywhere. Okay, so
Don't be looking at me.
Donald Trump has completely
I mean,
neutered, I believe, the press
Don,
corps.
can we just pause for a second? I mean, Eugene used to be the president of the White House Correspondents
we're gonna talk about that.
Association.
But we have to remember, too, there are some women in the White House Correspondents Corps that have been
Yeah.
asking him tough questions for a long
Yep.
time. And he didn't respond to Sean McCreesh the way that he responds to those women by calling them
Right.
piggies and out of their names. And so I didn't hear that. But shout out to the women who, at least try. I think that they should be stronger. The entire White House
Press corps. The White
press
House
corps.
press
Thank
corps.
you. The White
Yeah,
House
the
press corps.
pool.
Shout out to them, but I think that they could be doing a better job, and I am very disappointed that they invited Donald Trump to the White House Correspondents' Dinner because he does not believe in the First Amendment. It's a slap in the face to the American people that they even invited him.
All right, let's pause. Eugene, now we have had extensive conversation about this. I've had it with Eugene. I've had it with, frankly, to be honest, other anchors at MS Now. I've had it with other anchors not at this network because when the president said that he put out on his Truth Social, which I think was a lie, to be honest, that like, oh, the dinner's going to honor me. Every year the president is invited to the
will
dinner.
Not, and this is something that's really important.
He just didn't come when he was
This
in the
is
first
something that's really
administration. But go
important.
ahead.
He is not the honoree.
Who is the honoree?
Period. The journalists are the honorees. Period. Donald Trump will not be getting an award. There will not be a peace prize. That's not happening, right? I am not involved in the planning of it this year, thank God. But I know that that is not happening. Now, this is where tradition and the moment clash, right? The tradition has always been that the president of the WHCA invites the president of the United States. I did the same thing, okay? Last year, it was like in January, I sent an email to Caroline Leavitt that had an invite for Donald Trump and Melania Trump, and also for Caroline Leavitt to come and sit on the dais with us. I ain't never hear back. I heard that he wasn't coming the same way that everybody else did. She went on Sean Spicer's show, podcast, I think. Now, what's really important, what I said in the room that day, is that the dinner is not about the president. The person, the people getting lauded is not the president, it's not the administration. We do not invite the president of the United States only when they are someone who loves reporters and they love the First Amendment. You invite them because they should, right? And the what we tried to do last year, and what I assume they're going to try and do this year, is remind this president, remind this administration that at the end of the day, the First Amendment and journalists are key to democracy. Now, do they care about democracy? That's a question for them. But it is
I
about,
would say that they do not.
It is about when you have the person in front of you saying to them, this is what you should care about, right? Now, how they are going to do that this year, I don't know, but that is what we were ready for.
Okay, I
whether or
think
not
Don
he
has a
came.
thought. Look at me moderating this conversation.
So let me just say this. I love
Don?
you, Eugene, but
The
I
family
disagree with
meeting.
everything that you just said.
I
And let
know,
me
I
tell
know
you
do.
why.
I know.
Let me tell you why. I am a living example of the president who does not care about the
Yeah.
First Amendment. And
You
a
are.
president who would rather jail reporters or journalists than hear the truth does not deserve the honor or the privilege to be able to sit in a room of people who do that. Tradition is not law. And we don't live in traditional times. And I think the best way to give the message to this president is to not invite him to an event that is based on the very First Amendment of the Constitution, which is freedom of speech and freedom of the press. That's what we're honoring. And if we're not honoring that president or the White House spokesperson, then why did you invite them? Why do you have them there? Send a message to them. You don't believe in the First Amendment? you insult reporters, you call them names, you jail journalists, then you are not even worthy of being a part of this. You try to dictate who can get a press pass, who can't get a press pass, what reporters can cover at the Pentagon, then you don't believe in the Constitution and the First Amendment. We believe in that. And the best way to show you is not to invite you to something that honors that, because you do not honor it as the leader of the free world. So I disagree with you. There is no way that I would invite this man to anything, especially to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is to honor our colleagues who put their lives on the line, many of them every single day, to be able to tell not just the American people, but the world the truth without fear or favor.
There's a poem by Edgar Guest that I literally quote all the time whenever I go out and do a speech, when I speak at schools or anything. And it's called The Things That Haven't Been Done Before. And a part of the poem says, the things that haven't been done before, those are the things to try. And I do think that we are in a moment where some of the things that we have done before cannot be things that we continue to do, because Don Lemon live streamed a protest in Minnesota. You were reporting on what was happening. Now, this was a group called Racial Justice Network, who were told, they say, by a local journalist, that one of the pastors of the church in Minnesota's church called Cities Church is also the field office director of enforcement and removal operations for ICE in St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay, it's a man named David Easterwood. I'm giving the For the People version of what went on, who very closely resembles one of the pastors on the church's website. That person on the website spoke at a press conference with Kristi Noem in October and said, I'm honored to lead the officers and staff of ICE ERO across Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. Okay, so the protesters went into this church while the service was in progress, and Don was there covering it and live streamed it all. Don can't, say much about it, get into much, child, because he is not dropped. Like, this is active litigation that's going on. But because Don Lemon was doing his job, and it's very clear what you were doing, interviewing people, saying, I am not with this group, I'm covering it, asking everyone from all sides of the issue kind of why they were there and what was going on and what do they think. The government has come after Don. I just want to read from some of your federal indictment out loud, because I want to make sure that our listeners know exactly what you are being accused of. It's freaking crazy. And again, we know you don't want to get into the specifics, okay? You don't have to respond if you don't want to, maybe, but I'm going to read it.
I got you. Good.
First of all,
Simone, do your thing. I'm good.
The top count is conspiracy. Conspiracy. In the indictment, you were included in a group of agitators, I'm using air quotes for the people at home, now 39 people who went into this church, as I described, in what the indictment says is a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in what they say is acts of oppression. The grand jury alleges that as a result, young children were led to wonder, as one child put it, if their parents were going to die. A conspiracy requires overt acts in furtherance of it. And some of those listed in the indictment are that you peppered the pastor with questions. And then there is this sentence, okay? While talking with the pastors, from the indictment, defendant Lemon stood so close to the pastor that Lemon caused the pastor's right hand to graze Lemon, who then admonished the pastor, please don't push me. Don. So I understand. So I just say that I understand, because they went and got Don outside his hotel in LA and arrested this man in the middle of the night. Arrested him. Took his phone.
Don, how are you doing? Let's start there. How are you doing?
Are you making
like,
Simone's
let me see what he
do
can
what
answer.
it's doing because you're sitting so close to her? I'm just wondering.
She's shaking herself.
I'm just saying.
I'm very fired up about this.
So, how am I doing? I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. This is not an easy thing. It's not an easy moment when you have the Department of Justice after you. When you have having the government after you is not, something that you're like, woohoo, yay. And so, and it takes.
I just want to know. People are saying that you want this, that you like it, that you're relishing in this.
Simone, you've worked in government.
I know. I'm just telling you what the people are saying. What you want to say?
Targeted by the government, and there's nothing in this.
Yes, I have.
So no, I'm not relishing in this. But if I can take this opportunity to bring about, to show people the importance of the First Amendment and freedom of the press, then by all means, I'm going to do that. And that's what I should be doing as a journalist. There is a reason that the First Amendment is the First Amendment. It's because it's the bedrock of our Constitution. And without the First Amendment, without the freedom of the press, all the other ones don't stand. And so am I relishing this? Not at all. Do you think I like to be written about? Do you think like every development in this case that has nothing to do with me always has my name on it because I had the biggest name recognition of anyone there? Do you think that feels good?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. So anyone who says that is out of their rabbit ass minds. That is completely 100% not true. But what I will say is that I stand by my reporting. I stand by being a journalist. And I believe at the end of the day, the law will be on my side, and whatever that is, however long that takes, I will fight it to the best of my ability in the courts, and I believe that I will prevail.
The question I have for you actually is, when you were arrested, the White House X account posted a lemon emoji and chains. And I, as a Black man who sees you as a mentor, as someone who has led the way for people that look like the two of us to be on television, to be doing the kind of work that we're doing, I saw that. And I was shaken to my core about it. It was disturbing because they know what they're doing, I think. I think it is not an accident that they put chains in the imagery, that for the three of us, when we think about chains, we don't think about necklaces, right? We think about the kinds of things that were wrapped around people that looked like us, our ancestors, and snatched them and brought them over to this country to keep those chains on them. When you think about the ways in which they did that, the ways in which you and Georgia Forth, the other reporter here, who was charged, how are you taking that in?
Well, that's a very good question, and I thought about those things as I was handcuffed, and I'm glad you realized that, and I'm glad you understand it. You understand what they were doing, and I think young people, most people understand what they were doing. As I said when I came out of the courtroom after being locked up, I said that the process is a punishment. And so that is, I believe that that's what they're looking for, and they're also looking to embarrass people. And, I had one of my friends who's a very good former prosecutor said, and you're going to have to beat this, said, you know what they're doing, Don, because we offer to self-report, which means turn yourself in. She said, what they're doing is giving you the nigger treatment. And that means they want to treat you like, I guess that would mean a slave, enslaved people who were shackled. And I'm not sure but that's how I took it. Or the many Black men in this country who are locked up at an alarming rate, at a more alarming rate than our white counterparts, even though the crime statistics don't match the number of people who are being locked up. And so I believe that that's what they wanted. I think that they obviously know what they're doing. If that's what they want, then that's what they want. I'm not going to let that steal my joy. But at the end of the day, I believe that I will have the last word, and I will be able to write about that, tell my story, to come on your show on MS Now, and also to come back on Clock It, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the First Amendment and the freedom of the press prevailing, even as this president goes to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and turns it into an event about him, Eugene.
You know what? This is a nice place to end. Don, we love and appreciate you. And I do think it's important to say that Don could have been silent. He could have fought this silently, He is not for lack of coin. Y'all see the high quality sweaters and the glasses. He could have fought this silently, but I think you speaking up and speaking out and being very clear-eyed about this moment is helpful for everybody out there. So I
Thank
thank
you.
you, my friend.
Thank you, Simone. And let me just say
Thank you,
this,
sir.
okay? Because we are I'm an independent journalist and we rely on the
Yeah.
public. We don't have big corporate sponsorship. So become a member or subscriber to the Don Lemon Show. Go to YouTube or Twitch or Substack and just become a member, free or paid, because it does help us and it helps us with advertisers and with sponsorships. And that's how we stay streaming. So the Don Lemon Show on YouTube, etc., or and any other independent media or journalist, support that. And also, please support the Committee to Protect Journalists. That's who I've been donating
Yes.
resources to, or any journalistic organization, the National Association of Black Journalists, the National Association of Gay and Lesbian Journalists, as NLGJA of journalists as well. So support journalists, please. It is more critical in this moment. And so this is bigger than me. That's what this is about.
A little fist emoji.
Come
We'll be right
on,
back.
Come on. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and thank y'all for coming to the side chat. This is where we separate ourselves from the main chat to share more feelings, real feelings. And first, I just want to say about Don is that I hope people listen to and like not just hear, but listen to what he is saying about journalism, because I think people have talked about the packaging, right? That about Don, and Don is on the front lines of this, not because he wanted to be. I do not think Don Lemon wanted to be arrested. I do not think Georgia Ford wanted
Correct.
to
That's
be
why I
arrested.
asked him about it, because I thought it was, you hear what
Yeah,
people have said privately,
mhm.
people whom we've worked with, people who we may work with now, people who are respected in this industry. And I see what some of those same people think they write on social media that people don't see, but we clocking it.
Correct.
And I think it is despicable the way in which people have spoken about
Yeah.
Don Lemon, not just because he's my friend, but because I respect what it is that he does. And I know that they are targeting Don just like they targeted Georgia Ford, just like they targeted Lisa Cook, just like they there's a
The
pattern
list is
here,
long.
just like they tried to target Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, because they, the proverbial they, seem to think that Black people are an easy target.
Yes.
But they picked the right one, as my mama would
Correct,
say.
because he has coin and he has a fight in him. All right.
The coin is
The coin is
matters.
coining, okay? Let's be very clear. Now, I want to go to something that we have been talking about a lot.
I think you're wrong.
I
on
am
this.
right here, y'all. So y'all know we've been talking about AI. We've talked about it. I want to look at this.
What is in this paper?
This little paper. Come on now. This is NBC. They just dropped a new national poll, 1,000 registered voters.
Oh, a national poll of 1,000 registered
The
voters? Is this
only
representative of
topics-
America?
That's how that's how your
Okay.
boss decided to run for president. Moving on. The only topics that voters viewed more negatively than AI were the Democratic Party and Iran. Now, there are so many stories about, look at this, story after story
Who
about
gave you this research?
AI.
I'm gonna have to
Jesus
speak
did.
to Iggy.
Because at the end of the day,
Iggy
the
Monda, I
thing-
will be in your
What you be
office.
calling you? There's so many things that are happening with AI. One of them is that Claude, this is the one from Anthropic, the little AI from Anthropic. They said he has anxiety. Now, why the hell does the robot have anxiety?
First
That's
of
a
all,
human
you need
feeling.
to get Claude's pronouns right. Claude is a they.
Oh, excuse me.
I would, come on.
Yeah.
Claude is a they.
They have anxiety, and they are a damn robot. So
But
how
you know
do they
what? This
have
world
anxiety?
is anxious. Let me just say
Y'all,
something.
y'all stressing that robot out.
I don't think this little 1,000 people sample poll vindicates you.
I bet you don't.
But I do believe that it does speak to the concerns that there are at least a small subset of people across this country, including you,
correct.
have about AI. But would you say that, to be clear, you have great skin, but I know you use a filter
No,
on
baby.
Instagram
Oh,
every now and then.
She doesn't use a filter.
Yes, and
Never a
that's
filter.
AI.
I do
okay?
not use a filter.
Okay.
I do
You've
not use
never
a
used a
filter,
filter? If I ever
ever.
catch you with a Paris filter, I'm gonna be like, look at you using AI. When y'all are Googling things and your little summary come up at the top and you using the summary, that's AI. When you are speaking to Siri, Siri is AI. So we are using AI in our lives every single day. Now the Claudes and the Chat GPTs of it
different.
all, it is different, but either we gonna understand how to use it and get in on the ground floor so we can use it to our advantage, or we're gonna be left behind.
Now, this is the thing. We might want to get on the ground floor, but the people that built that floor are the billionaires who don't seem to be looking out for you checking on Claude and you using Claude to figure out, can I make my room this size, or what's the stankiest
This is true because the
cheese?
Anthropic CEO did apologize for the spat that spit onto the public between them and the Pentagon, because Anthropic had basically rules around what they wanted the Pentagon, what
Now
the
this
Pentagon
I
could
like.
and could not do with their AI. So the Pentagon said, well, we're going to cancel their contract. But I read an AP story this morning that said they use AI to bomb, to target Iran. And so I will just note that, look, I'm using Claude, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using Opus Clips. That's how I'm getting my clips out very quickly. Eugene likes the clips being clipped out.
The clips
AI
are
is
very
clipping me.
good.
But we do need to be vigilant on these companies.
Yeah.
I will never cape for a billionaire. I would love to be one.
Correct.
I would love to be one. I would be an ethical billionaire. Give me the coin.
No, I will rob her if she becomes a billionaire. That is 100% a fact. Just
We're
to be
going to
clear.
stay on this AI tip. I'm going to be working on Mr. Daniels.
I talk to Siri and that's it. And I say, thank you, Siri, after. So that when they take over, they know I was nice to them.
Okay. How about something we can agree on?
Which is?
Are you going to watch the Oscars this
Yes, I will.
weekend? Where will you be watching it?
At home.
Okay.
I do not go to Oscar parties.
Of
I like to be at my house.
I'm a whole. Well, yes, I would. I want to be at your house too if you haven't unpacked all your box.
We-
So yes, you actually need to be at
I
home.
need to be at home.
And who will you be rooting for?
Everybody black.
Exactly. I'm gonna have my jacket on. I have
Correct.
a rooting for everybody black jacket.
I think that like
I
and
will be
also
wearing
did
it.
you hear that they're going in the performances, the Sinners cast is going to be doing the song that
They better
the-
not have him up there performing and they don't win it. Let me
Now-
just tell you
now-
something.
and look,
They
look.
better not have Ryan and Woomy and Michael B. Jordan up on that stage and my girl and the young guy with the guitar and they don't
Yes,
win it.
Yes.
Okay, and Delroy Lindo.
Misty Copeland is going to dance on stage with
Misty
them.
not dancing. She broke her
Baby,
hip.
she gonna be up there. I don't know what she gonna be
Oh,
doing.
I'm
but
gonna
she's
email
involved.
Misty.
Yes, make
I'm gonna
sure-
email her because
Let
I
her
don't
do
think.
it.
Well,
It's her
I'm not
hip.
trying to block Misty, but I'm concerned for her health.
Her name was on the list. I will say this. I think that the actor awards where Michael won, it throws things out of loop. People a little upset with Mr. Timothy for saying he don't like ballet and opera.
So now
the
Misty's
people
on the
vote
stage.
not on the stage.
They done found a people's ballerina.
I would just
child.
say, and I talked to some voters within the academy who have said the recent things that have been happening have influenced votes. So we will see.
We will see. Well, with that being said, thank you for joining us. It was amazing. This is
Yes.
episode 5.
Yeah.
Don told the people to rate his stuff and like it. They should do that. Subscribe to
Yes.
Don. They need to rate this podcast.
Do it to us. as
Rate the
well.
podcast. We are also, shout out to the people in the Apple Podcast comment.
Yes.
Because we are looking at your ratings and your words, and like we will make sure this episode is no longer than 45 minutes because we heard your feedback. Thank you.